This is Epstein's island, and these are pictures of pretty girls on it, who were then subjected to sexual slavery between the ages of 12 and 17.
I'm going to tell you the story of the creepiest island, which has been visited by many of the world's stars in its time.
From Prince Andrew to US presidents. A crazy place where children were trafficked and had real orgies with them for those with money. What became of all those people and how the island lives now?
I'll tell you at the end.
And I'll start from the beginning. The beauties on the background of paradise landscapes do not even suspect where they got. Coral reefs, azure waves, serene smiles on vacation photos, seemingly picture perfect, but behind these shots lies the horrifying truth about Jeffrey Epstein's private island. The photos shown in a New York courtroom gloss over the grim reality of Pedophile Island, a picturesque spot in the Caribbean. According to the testimony, the girls simply did not realize where they were going. They were recruited through modeling agencies, promised a great career, and then offered a little trip. There would be a social event, and the girls should fill the place with their beauty.
And my first question is, how did they get there unnoticed?
Everyone was taken by yacht or helicopter that belonged to Jeffrey Epstein. It was a real prison camp on this island, with luxury interiors. Young girls were actually held as sex slaves. Epstein and his pervert buddies were playing dirty games. Many were recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell, a socialite whose name was on the lips of most advertising and modeling agencies. She sought out those who were vulnerable, promised golden mountains, dazzled them with her wealth and power, and then sent them to an island where their passports were confiscated and the girls were left incommunicado. The Virgin Islands Attorney General admitted to human trafficking. When the truth came out, it was discovered that some of the captives even tried to escape by swimming across the Caribbean Sea. Unsuccessful, of course. The girls were quickly fished out on boats and brought back. But the creepy thing that scares me personally is that this island still attracted VIP guests, even during the scandals. Prince Andrew, Naomi Campbell, Kevin Spacey, and many others. All of them, of course, deny their involvement in these horrors.
But I'll tell you about all of these people a little later.
Like a hotel. For now, let me show you the conditions in which they lived there. Guests would fly to St. Thomas in their fancy private jets and then transfer to Epstein's Black Epstein helicopters to fly all the way to the island. Once there, the endless party began, well, or more like a nightmare.
Depending on which way you look at it.
Their every whim was catered to by about 70 staff. From the gardeners to the boat captains on duty, everyone wore stylish black and white polos and took an oath of secrecy. Like a 5-star hotel where no one pays, recalls one staff member. The island had everything the soul desired. Beaches, palm trees, swimming pools, even a tennis court. But the scariest part was some kind of soundproof temple on a rocky ledge.
Sounds kind of ominous, doesn't it?
And it's all on an island that's basically off limits to prying eyes. The paparazzi couldn't get here. There were guards on duty everywhere. There were even coastal control systems. Like a military base, but worse things have happened here. Victims. You ask me, what about the victims? The case files describe that Little St. James was part of a worldwide network where sex trafficking victims were sent to different parts of the world. Horrified. The worst part is that among them were children as young as 12 years old. Locked on an island where Epstein controlled all contact with the outside world, the girls experienced horrific moments. One 15-year-old Swedish girl recounted how, in 2005, she had her passport and cell phone taken from her and then forced to have sex with a man who was well into his 50s. Yes! She tried to run away, but was caught. Another victim, Sarah Ransom, who was lured in at the age of 22, submitted photos to the court. They show the girls smiling like they're enjoying a vacation, not yet understanding anything. Ransom said Epstein raped her up to 3 times a day. She also tried to escape, but was caught. Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise George in 2020 said, "Don't forget he owns an entire island." And this was not a situation where you could just run away. One victim told CBS News that she was raped right in Epstein's office and that a gun was strapped to the bed in his bedroom on Little St. James to keep the girl from kicking around and complying with his every whim. Prince Andrew. But who used the services of this child brothel? And here's where I surprise you. Prince Andrew was not averse to taking a holiday on Little St. James's Island. Imagine, only according to available data, the prince was there 3 times, carefully concealing each of his visits. The truth only came to light through investigation and witness testimony. Former housekeeper Kathy Alexander said that the prince felt at home there, as if it was his own little world. He'd walk into the kitchen, he'd turn to Kathy, "What's good here?" Another funny situation with the prince was when he flew to the island with a young girlfriend. She stepped on a sea urchin while swimming, and the prince peed on her foot and laughed and said, "The king's cock has done its duty." Yes, Prince, according to Virginia Roberts, one of Epstein's victims, was one of her rapists. Roberts said that Prince was given anything he wanted, and that anything included sex with multiple underage girls, whom he could change multiple times a day. But, as is usually the case, the Duke of York stoically denies everything. But the Daily Mail in 2020 found evidence of his presence on the island at the same time as Roberts. The story climaxed in 2021 when Roberts sued him. And in 2022, bang, the prince closes the case, paying out around $10 million without admitting guilt. Apparently, that's how much the girl valued the damage she suffered on the island. It can happen to anyone, but now she'll live in her own pleasure and not care if it happens again to someone else. Locals saw everything. On St. Thomas, the locals saw it all too, and often referred to Epstein's private jets as the Lolita Express.
What?
Airport employees on the island, becoming unwitting witnesses, saw Epstein fly in with a new batch of children and girls. The words of an air traffic controller at the airport, Cyril King, told Vanity Fair, are so verbatim. "I saw him get on a private plane with children and women. I don't understand why none of them did anything about it." Another airport worker notes that the girls looked so young, wearing school sweatshirts, but all of them with Gucci and Dior bags, lots of luxury bags. The case file also confirms the fact that the girls were not stingy. They were treated well before arriving on the island, showering them with expensive gifts and heavy luxury. The statement from the Virgin Islands Attorney General's office also sounded very unequivocal. From 2001 to 2019, Epstein transported minors for slavery on Little St. James. This is more than a crime. It is an unspeakable evil that needed to be ended. Running islands.
And here I have to talk about the key witnesses.
Kathy Alexander and her husband Miles, the island managers. Hired by Maxwell in 1999, they faced the reality of the island in full force. Witnesses said that young guests were horrified, encouraged to go nude walking and nude bathing with very mature men and women. Kathy was concerned about the age of the girls. Some seemed too young to her. She was concerned if their mothers knew where they were. She felt uncomfortable seeing another woman's daughter in this situation. One of the girls, Tila, particularly stuck out in Katie's memory. She felt that Tila shouldn't be here due to her young age, shouldn't be drinking alcohol and gaggling in men's laps, but had to dismiss herself without proof. Why? Her words would mean nothing against the powers that be. The Alexanders claim that Maxwell, now imprisoned for aiding and abetting Epstein's crimes, was the queen bee on the island. The manager saw a box of adult toys in Epstein's bedroom, but denied their participation in children's parties for his guests. Mrs. Alexander also testified that Prince Andrew was one of the island's first distinguished guests during their tenure there. Other stars. Epstein's island has become the center of the universe for celebrities with peculiar proclivities. Let me tell you about them. First, model Naomi Campbell, who arrived for 2 days with something the Alexanders called a coffin, a huge trunk full of clothes.
Well, a star is always a star, right?
Then there's another list of gentlemen, from Nobel laureate Lawrence Krauss to comedian Chris Tucker, actor Kevin Spacey, and Victoria's Secret mogul Les Wexner. And the strangest surprise of all, theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking was there too. Can you imagine he even took a submarine tour around the island? This was testified to by former managers. Epstein, by the way, vehemently denied the allegation of Hawking's participation in the orgy on the island, and even offered a reward for disproving it. And of course, there's no shortage of politicians, Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, who deny their presence there. But David Copperfield went even further, rumored to have proposed to Claudia Schiffer on this very island. It was so good for that couple to be there. Trying to sabotage the case. When the Epstein investigation began, suddenly everyone was nervous.
And somehow I'm not surprised.
At the center of this nervousness are the island's visitor records. So, picture this. Epstein's lawyer, Darren Indick, calls the island manager on St. Thomas, Mr. Alexander, and here's the assignment. bring all the arrival and departure records from Little St. James. Why is this so important? Well, presumably these records could contain the names of all those VIPs and girls who kept Epstein company. And so Mr. Alexander hands these journals to the lawyer and they disappear. No one ever saw them again. It turns out that the defense itself threatened to admit the lists into evidence, but at some point decided to destroy or hide these records. Isn't that odd? Bill Clinton. Okay, and remember what I said about the President of the United States, Bill Clinton?
What did the investigation uncover?
First, the Alexanders state under oath that Clinton was never on the island during their tenure. Then other contradictory evidence comes to light that contrariwise confirms the Veritunen president was present. Steve Scully, an IT engineer, claimed in a Netflix documentary that he saw Clinton on the island with Epstein in 2001. And Doug Band of Vanity Fair reported that Clinton was on the island in 2003. Meanwhile, Virginia Roberts Gifford, who in her 17s managed to become a prisoner of the island, describes in her memoirs meeting Clinton, seeing him in the company of 2 young girls. According to her, Clinton seemed pleased with their company, but Clinton strenuously denies ever being there. Maxwell, in legal documents, also calls Gifford's allegations fiction. Who was telling the truth? The investigation was never able to find out, and Bill Clinton was never even interviewed as a witness. Strange temple. But I'd like to focus separately on the strange temple that seemed to be the creepiest structure on Epstein's island. This building, with its blue and white stripes, golden dome, and statues on the roof, is causing a lot of speculation and conjecture. The room is said to be soundproofed and has a locking bar on the door, which only adds fuel to the fire of rumors. Theories range from an underground lair to the altar of an ancient deity to a place of ritualized violence. Some conspiracy theorists have claimed there was a Masonic lodge and baby's blood was almost drunk there. But despite all these macabre notions, Business Insider's investigation concluded that it was likely just a private office and Epstein's music room. Interestingly, according to the LA Times, Epstein was also keen on finding pirate treasure on the island. He generously rewarded his servants for old rum bottles and dishes. It happened that the island purposely hid alcohol and drugs, and then forced young girls to find and use them. None of the island's victims could explain about the temple. No one invited or called them there. Therefore, what really happened behind the doors is not known. Maybe Epstein was listening to music after raping the children. What's happening to the island now? In 1998, Jeffrey Epstein, through a shell company, bought Little St. James for $6 million from venture capitalist Arch Kuman. Epstein completely redesigned the island's landscape, cutting down native vegetation, replacing it with 40-foot palm trees, and in 2007 began extensive construction work. The main complex was expanded, and satellites showed terraces, cottages, pools, beach houses, docks, outbuildings, a tennis court, an enclosed lagoon, and various huts growing across the island. Epstein routinely moved around the island in flip-flops while listening to meditative music from speakers while women sunbathed topless. Girls, to be exact. But what's the deal with the area now, after everything has come to light? Following Epstein's death in 2019, the islands were finally sold in May 2023 to Stephen Dieckhoff, founder of investment firm Black Diamond Capital Management. The deal amounted to around $47 million, significantly less than the original $98 million valuation. Dieckhoff, who claims he never met Epstein or visited the islands before buying them, plans to turn them into a luxury 25-room resort. So the islands, once shrouded in secrecy and scandal, are now being prepared for a new life under a new owner. It was a resort for a select few, but now it will be for everyone. I'm sure there will be those willing to pay overpriced prices just to touch a piece of the atmosphere that used to reign on these islands. Teen conclusion. What exactly was going on this island and who were the regulars there? We will never know for sure. All evidence has been destroyed and Epstein himself took his own life in a holding cell. Why? I think the answer is obvious because the elite can't take risks. But officially, of course, suicide.